The collapse of humanity. Let us begin the story of the universe with our own kind, humanity. I will now recount how, after 2024, humans themselves destroyed their civilization, resources, and values. In the year 2027, Earth was on the brink of collapse. Decades of unchecked consumption, rampant industrialization, and environmental neglect had brought humanity to a critical point. The signs were clear: polluted oceans, deforested lands, and a climate out of control. Yet, it wasn't until the world began to run dry that the true gravity of the situation became apparent. Water, the most essential resource, became scarce. Glaciers that had stood for millennia melted into the sea, and rivers and lakes dried up. Nations that once thrived on abundant water now faced devastating droughts. Agriculture collapsed, and entire regions became uninhabitable. Governments scrambled to secure whatever reserves they could, leading to the first sparks of global conflict. By 2035, tension had reached a boiling point. The scarcity of water ignited wars, with countries fighting desperately for survival. What began as skirmishes over water sources quickly escalated into full-scale conflict. Nations with advanced militaries and access to dwindling water supplies formed uneasy alliances, while weaker nations either submitted or perished. The war, initially called the Water Wars, saw unprecedented destruction. Cities were bombed into oblivion, and millions of lives were lost. Advanced weapons and technology were used ruthlessly, turning vibrant landscapes into wastelands. Refugee crises erupted as people fled from the front lines, seeking safety in still stable regions. But the conflict did not end with water. As the war raged on, the disruption to global trade and infrastructure led to severe food shortages. The agricultural collapse, already worsened by climate change and water scarcity, was made even worse by the destruction of farmland and supply chains. Famine spread like wildfire, leaving no corner of the world untouched. The once mighty cities that stood as symbols of human achievement were now shadows of their former selves. Skyscrapers lay in ruins, their steel skeletons jutting out like broken bones. The streets, once bustling with life, were now filled with the echoes of despair and the cries of the hungry. Governments struggled to maintain order, but society was falling apart. Lawlessness and chaos became the norm as people fought for whatever scraps they could find. As the years dragged on, the war evolved into a battle for food. The food wars saw a shift in alliances and tactics, with nations now focusing on securing fertile land and agricultural technology. Bioengineering and genetically modified crops became coveted assets, fiercely guarded by those who possessed them. Black markets thrived, dealing in everything from stolen seeds to illegal water filtration systems. By the year 2045, humanity had reached its lowest point. The global population had been decimated, and the survivors lived in constant fear. The remnants of the old world, technology, culture, and knowledge, were scattered and fragmented. In this bleak landscape, a new order began to emerge. Warlords and factions carved out territories, ruling with iron fists. The dream of a unified world, once envisioned by idealists and leaders, had turned into a nightmare of division and strife. As resources continued to dwindle, desperation reached unprecedented levels. Communities turned against each other, and any semblance of cooperation was replaced by ruthless competition. The strong preyed on the weak, and survival became a brutal game of power and control. Humanity's inherent selfishness and egoism led to catastrophic outcomes. Mass deaths from starvation and dehydration became commonplace. Corpses littered the streets, left unburied due to the sheer number of the deceased. The lack of proper burials and sanitation led to widespread disease. Epidemics spread rapidly, claiming even more lives. The world was engulfed in a miasma of decay and suffering, with no end in sight. The social order completely collapsed. Governments fell, replaced by chaos and anarchy. The human race, once proud and ambitious, was now reduced to a state of primal survival. Hope was a distant memory as the species faced its darkest hour. The planet, once a cradle of life, had become a graveyard of human ambition and failure. In this desolate world, the true cost of human arrogance was laid bare. The lessons of the past were lost amid the ruins, and the future seemed an impossible dream. The legacy of humanity was one of destruction and despair, a stark reminder of the fragility of civilization and the perilous path it had walked. And so, the story of humanity continued, marked by its darkest hour. It was a story of collapse and devastation, of destruction and hopelessness. A story that would ultimately lead to the unification of three great races, humans, Toraks, and Solens, each contributing to the creation of a new, harmonious existence in the vast expanse of the universe.